Awesome. Okay. Mitch and Megan, thank you for being on Whiskey Noobs. Thanks for taking the time here.
Listen, glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for hosting. So if you guys are watching on the YouTube version, we are in the distillery actually right now, which is very cool. And I thought a good place to start would be, since I've got two guests here, if you guys could outline your roles and how they're similar and how they're different at WhistlePig. So maybe Megan, if you want to start.
Yeah, sure. So I am the head blender here. So simplest way is picking what barrels end up in what bottles, right? Goal on our core SKUs are to always have a consistency, right? So 10-year rye should always taste like 10-year rye. And then to really push the boundaries on the experimental side and make sure it's always something new and different and exciting from that end.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm Mitch Mahar. I am the Research and Development Distiller here at WhistlePig Whiskey. The very quick answer as to what I do is I'm a man who's been known to fall down rabbit holes, and Megan sends me down the right rabbit hole so that we actually make a really nice whiskey that is profitable and everyone's going to enjoy and fits our overall WhistlePig sort of, ideals.
Okay, well, that is a great segue because my next question is, what if you had to outline the WhistlePig kind of ethos, what would you say that is? Quick elevator pitch.
So we want to make the best whiskey on and for the planet. But the goal is always just to have it be like an easy, drinkable, really enjoyable kind of conversational style whiskey.
Okay.
And then always looking to push the boundaries. We want to have fun with those flavors, look at different innovations, be able to always come up with something new and different here. So,
Yeah. I mean, so to sort of like follow up on that, we have a number of great examples of sort of like classic American styles of whiskey in this country. But, we wanted to really focus in on things that like excite us, make us excited, sort of like be part of the whiskey industry, create things that you don't really see anywhere else. And so, yeah, it's sort of like really leaning into more of like that experimental stuff and really sort of like pushing the boundaries of what people expect of whiskey and what we can deliver.
Okay, yeah. And we're going to talk about some of that experimental stuff here in a minute. However, one of the things I like to start with, and we'll make it a little bit quick since we've got two of you guys, but I like to talk about just like briefly what led you to WhistlePig.
Sure.
And at what point along that journey you found yourself like falling in love with whiskey, where you're like, oh, I actually really like this. Because I feel like everybody has a different genesis that causes that. So go ahead, and I guess, Megan, if you want to lead.
yeah. So for me, it kind of started back in college. I got a degree in chemical engineering. When I was at school, my dad read an article in Whiskey Advocate about a female master distiller with a chemical engineering degree. And I thought, like, that's the coolest job in the world. Like, that's the best way to use my degree. And basically got stuck on it. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So out of college, got my foot in the alcohol industry any way I could. Ended up being in hard cider. So I spent a couple years in the hard cider industry at a place in Buffalo. And then always really did want to get over to the distillation and the whiskey side of it. So started applying to different jobs and ended up here at WhistlePig. But really fell in love with WhistlePig and the brand and kind of whiskey in general as I learned the versatility of it, right? I grew up, as I think a lot of people do, you kind of like whatever your parents are drinking, that individual whiskey, you don't really like explore or really get into some of those craft ones super simply or super quickly.
Yeah.
For me, the versatility in our ryes and in our products is really what made me fall in love with it. Is that like there's kind of one for every occasion, and if I'm feeling a little like I want something sweeter, then I go for 12-year, or something a little smokier than the 15-year. So having that versatility and seeing that there's kind of like a moment for each whiskey is what made me fall in love with whiskey, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with rye. I feel like versatility with rye is like big.
Yeah.
Whereas I see a little bit less versatility in corn spirits, things like that. It's still there for sure, but rye is like you got anything from floral or peppery or herbal. It's just extremely versatile. Yeah. How about you?
So almost the exact opposite approach. So my sort of joke is I got into the whiskey industry through the back door. So before I was a distiller, I worked as a brewer in a regional brewery up here in Vermont.
Okay.
Before that, I worked in a small wine cellar in New Jersey. And then before that, while I was in college, I worked at a liquor store where I had access to thousands of whiskeys. And to be honest, between us friends, the whiskeys that really got me interested in whiskey were actually scotches. because a lot of them were focused in on very regional specific things, very different flavor profiles across each region, and then heavy use of finishing casks. They were, at the time when I started drinking whiskey, they were the ones who were really doing more experimentation. Whereas, like, at the time, American whiskeys tended to just be non-age statement declared whiskeys, very sort of like, yes, this is 51% corn. We bumped out the rest with mostly rye, a little bit of wheat, so on and so forth. And so that's sort of how I snuck my way into the distilling industry.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, though. Yeah, and that's, I guess basically since the start of WhistlePig, that's something that's changed dramatically in the American whiskey world. Is it was virgin American oak, put your label out there with no age statement, like you said, and then that was it. And you guys are doing something completely different from that. So let's break down the four. If you go on the WhistlePig website, which is what people are probably going to do, it will be down in the description. There's four kind of separate categories on the website. So there's the piggyback, the farm stock, the well aged, and the bold experiments. So let's just kind of start by walking through what each of those mean. Like, what does that name mean? So, like, what's piggyback? What's the ethos behind those bottles?
Sure. You want to go shot for shot? We'll just keep
back and forth.
Yeah.
So
sounds good.
So piggyback is really meant to be your bartender's best friend. So we have both a rye and a bourbon under the piggyback label and ethos, and the goal is to have the perfect whiskey for any whiskey-based cocktail between those two. So both live in an incredibly high percentage of rye. For one, is 100% rye on our piggyback. Our bourbon is 97% corn, so super high corn. So we're going super sweet or super spicy.
Okay.
Really bartender focused. It's actually why that bottle is shaped a little different, right? Our classic bottle doesn't fit a pour spout. So the number one change when we went to go make a bottle for the bartenders and for cocktailing was to make sure it was going to fit a pour spout.
Okay.
But those two products are really blended and really made to be your bartender's best friend.
Okay, that makes sense. And is that why it's mostly the one grain? Is so that you're mostly getting a specific flavor when you put it into a cocktail?
Yeah, so the focus with those rye cocktails, right, you're tending to add a sweet component to it. Kind of like your old fashioned is a great example, right?
Yeah.
So anytime we're adding like a sweet component, you kind of want that rye spice. Anytime you're adding more citrusy components, you tend to want to balance it with some sweeter notes of the bourbon.
Yeah. Okay. So then farm stock is the next one that I have. Do we want to break down?
So in here, I'll hop in on this.
Okay, yeah.
So, although we started WhistlePig whiskey with sourced whiskeys that we then did specialty finishes on, and we still have those things in our portfolio, we always knew that we wanted to grow our own grain, distill our own whiskeys, make our own mashes, so on and so forth. So for our farm stock line, this is where we really get to sort of like flex like what like Vermont terroir is actually about, right? The vast majority of American whiskeys you can have are almost entirely from Kentucky, with a few smatterings across the rest of the nation. But we really want to showcase Vermont and sort of like the Northeast in terms of flavors it can bring, as well as, really focusing in on very unique rye varietals. I mean, the vast majority of distilleries are all using grain that basically comes from the Midwest, from large grain producers, and they're doing a great job. Like, there's nothing wrong with that grain, but like, you don't get a sense of place. So we really want to sort of like dial up that sense of place and show what makes Vermont unique in terms of the overall American whiskey experience.
Okay, and you're doing that in the farm stock specifically because you guys are growing. It contains, correct me if I'm wrong, at least some of what was grown here on the property in anything in the farm stock lineup, and then some of them are entirely.
Yes,
right.
So like Beyond Bonded's a perfect example of that, right?
Yes.
Where that's 100% our grain, our water, Vermont white oak, like the whole bit, all us, top to bottom.
Okay, and Vermont white oak. Well. Yeah, let's start with the Vermont. I was going to save it for later, but you know what? Let's just dive in. So
Sure.
I didn't actually know this before this trip, so a lot of people listening probably don't as well. What's special about Vermont white oak? Why do you guys emphasize that?
You want to take this? You want to split it? How do you want to do this?
for it.
I'll take this one. Okay, so in comparison to your standard American oak that you see in most barrels, like most of those barrels, the white oak is sourced from the Ozarks, right? So sort of like, in general, the American sort of like southeast. Whereas, although it's the exact same species of tree, because it's grown in the Northeast and we have a wildly different climate, mainly a longer, colder winter, in terms of how the tree grows. If you were to look at a cross section of the tree, the grain structure is really tight, and all the rings of the tree, the growth rings, are very tightly and concentrically bound, which changes up the standard sort of balance of lignins and wood sugars that are available to Vermont white oak as opposed to your standard American sort of like Ozark white oak.
Okay.
And then we've utilized those specialty flavors to sort of highlight things within our farm stock lineup, as well as our 15-year line, using it as a finishing barrel, to sort of highlight not only like these really nice, wonderful sort of like creme brulee, butterscotch flavors, but also a nice sort of like soft, peppery, light smokiness.
Yeah. And I think that's really apparent in the 15, which is actually the next category that we're going to move to here. That light smokiness. So the well-aged lineup, what's the general theme there? Other than age, obviously.
Yeah, so that kind of like section or category for us really builds the core of our products, and really kind of where we started and how we've grown as a company. So the first thing we ever released was our 10-year-old rye. In the U.S., a 10-year-old age statement at this time was unheard of. So coming out at these big, bold age statements, we also wanted to put our best foot forward with the rye. Right? Rye wasn't a huge part of the category when we launched. So at that age statement, it gets some really nice smoothness and roundness to it, along with that rye spice. And then kind of going through that versatility I was talking about earlier, right? So the next one we launched was 12-year. We looked to wine finishing, taking a page out of the Scotch book, essentially. Tried a bunch of different wine finishes until we ended up on Port, Madeira, and Sauterne, blending all three of those together to make our 12-year. And then our 15-year using that Vermont oak finish, giving it some of that smokiness. Some of those caramelized wood sugars really come through on that. So kind of that category makes up what is kind of our core SKUs here. Which this year we're really excited to have added our 10-year bourbon to as well. So that just came out in January. Paying some respects back to Kentucky and where this all started, but also then putting a little WhistlePig twist on it by making a specialty finishing barrel that has a different toast on each barrel head. We palletize our barrels here at WhistlePig, so halfway through the process, we flip that finishing barrel to make our 10-year bourbon. So
for people who kind of missed that, I thought that was super interesting last night. So basically, you picture the barrel the way you'd have it if you had like a bar, like a decorative barrel. You guys are palletizing them that way rather than being on a rack. And so the bottom of the barrel and the top of the barrel have two different types of toast. And then when are you flipping them? I missed that part.
So for us, it's a 6 week. It spends 6 weeks on both sides.
Yes, and so then you're flipping it halfway through and getting a little bit. You're getting two different finishes almost from one barrel.
Barrel,
which is really interesting. Wow, yeah, okay. And then that had a couple other Easter eggs in it, so it was called snout to tail for that reason.
So it's called snout to tail because you're flipping it from one side to the other.
Yeah.
It's also proof to 88 proof because there are 880 miles between here and Louisville, Kentucky. Which we are very excited to be opening up a location in Louisville in the next couple of months. We bought an old bank down there that we're really excited to be restoring and bringing up our new spot. So.
Yeah, let's actually pause there because I didn't plan to talk about it, but I think that's a really fun one we can dig into. So what should people expect? Because I know a lot of people listening to this go to the Bourbon Trail relatively regularly. What should we expect? Or how far along in the planning are you guys with that?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd say we're
pretty far along. We're pretty dialed in right now,
right? Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to open up in a couple months, there's not a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah.
No, what we really wanted to do was to sort of like give you sort of like a taste of Vermont, but like bring it down to Kentucky.
Yeah.
We did want to really sort of like match some of our competitors and have this really nice sort of like more elevated sort of tasting room experience. But we wanted to sort of step away from the idea of like, oh, you have to go on a 30-minute tour before you can have a quarter-ounce pour. So it's like, we want you to just be able to walk in, enjoy WhistlePig for everything that it is, and like we'll have folks who can really go in depth to all the SKUs, or if you just want to walk in, like have a cocktail and just have a good time, like we want you to have that experience as well.
Okay.
We've also kept the vault in the bank, which we plan to have some of our more like rarer exclusive offerings that you could, pick up for retail.
Yeah. Okay. So you might be able to find some stuff there that you can't find at a store.
Absolutely.
Stay
Be able to
tuned.
try it. Yeah. Okay.
I can't give away all my secrets. But,
Right.
Good times
Okay.
are coming.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, and so then diving into the last kind of category on the website there, the one that I think is the more experimental, trailblazing, kind of what we've been hinting at, but we haven't directly talked about it yet, the bold experiments category. What is happening there?
I mean, the easy thing to call out is Boss Hog, right? Like, it's, sort of, it's the one everyone wants us to talk about anyway, so let's just go right to the meat and potatoes here.
Yes, can I have you go just a little higher with the microphone?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries at all.
No, so Boss Hog every single year is our biggest innovation experiment of the year.
Yeah.
And we really like to pull out all of the stops in terms of really creating a whiskey that is a sort of like once in a lifetime experience you would have never seen anywhere else in the spirits world, or even if you were to expand it to overall alcohol in terms of like wine, beer, whatever. Like, we really want it to stand out as its own, beyond just like whiskey skew, but its own experience.
Yeah. And what? Okay. Well, how much can we talk about the 12? How much are we?
We can talk about.
We can talk about 12.
Yeah.
So
have we officially crossed over?
When are you really?
Oh,
November.
Okay,
November, like
October
2nd.
23rd is when you can. Okay.
Perfect. Let's talk about.
Let's talk 12.
That worked out great. I can push it back if I have to. Let's talk about 12. So, for people that's kind of, okay, you're doing experimental, you're kind of going outside of the norm. We talked about 11 last night, which is very outside the norm. What's happening with 12? What makes it so different?
So, do you want me to keep going with 12? I'm just
You're
keep
on the
gushing. I'm going to keep
experimental.
gushing
You
about
got
12.
Okay.
So, for 12, we wanted to create a super unique finish that really focused in on sort of Mesoamerican traditions. So, on one hand, you have pulque, which is a wild fermented agave sap-based, essentially agave wine.
Mm-hmm.
It's really famous for fermenting super quickly and then essentially expiring almost as quickly as it ferments, which is why you really can't find any commercial examples of pulque around. Like, you really have to go to Mexico to a pulqueria in order to actually have pulque.
Which, if anyone ever gets the chance, is like one of the coolest experiences ever.
Without
really?
Like, so cool from both like the environment. We went out and we were able to like grab the sap ourselves out of the agave, walked through the whole process with them. One of the coolest. So if you ever get the chance to go to a pulqueria, highly suggest.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does it taste like?
It's wild, honestly. So it is a slightly sweet, slightly tangy. It has this really interesting sort of like viscosity, and it sort of has like almost like a milky sort of look to it. Like the entire experience, top to bottom, you have no idea what you're going to expect, but it is really cool, and there really isn't anything like pulque out there.
Okay.
So that's sort of like part of the finishing process, or part of what inspired the finish. The second part, we were inspired by the classic sort of like Aztec hot chocolate, right? So like leaning into like cacao nibs and heirloom peppers. So we created what is known as a pulque curado, or like a cured pulque. So we created our own pulque, and then we seasoned it with cacao nibs, guajillo, pasilla, and chiltepin peppers to sort of give you this, middle century ancient sort of like Mexican traditions to create a crazy unique finish that we then use to finish a rye whiskey in.
Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot
of
to
moving parts.
absorb. Yeah. So you're taking that and putting it into a barrel so that the barrel gets that.
Yeah. So we basically create our own pulque curado barrels.
Yeah.
And then we get rid of that liquid, and that liquid, we don't need it. It disappears forever. Thanks for your service.
Right.
Then it finishes straight rye whiskey.
Interesting. Okay. So okay, I have so many questions right now. So the first is, a lot of times you have a certain flavor of the finish, but then when you put the whiskey in it, it's not just like, oh, you took whiskey and you took pulque and now it tastes like pulque whiskey.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what to expect from the flavor profile?
I think, at least for me, you're going to get a lot of the sweetness from the cacao nibs, that chocolate, and also kind of the pulque sap adds its own level of sweetness as well. That's up front for me. It's right on the nose. It's the main base of the aroma to me. And then it finishes with those pepper spices, right? Like, you're going to get that pepper heat that you would expect, right? So I think those are kind of the two main, like, things to come out of it, but there was a lot of balance in getting that right. So it's not right. You gotta make sure that sweet and spicy has a good balance and a good mix to it. So from our side, like we spent over a year making sure that seasoning liquid had the right balance to infuse the wood to make sure it transferred into the whiskey exactly the way that we wanted it to.
Yeah.
Over a year. So how many are you thinking about at a time? How many Boss Hog releases?
Multiple.
I was gonna say, I'm like, wait, over
numbers. We're not doing this one at a time.
Yeah, you can't, I guess. Yeah. Wow. And how strong would you say the finish is compared to the rye body that comes through?
I mean, you never want the rye to get lost, right? We are trying to sell you a rye whiskey at the end of the day. Yeah. But we're trying to find flavors that can really sort of like come into the wings and support the rye and deliver an experience that you can't get anywhere else, right? Like that is sort of like the central, mission statement for Boss Hog.
Yeah, absolutely. So then speaking of, you always have multiple irons in the fire, you're thinking of multiple ones. What's your guys' creative process look like? Like, where do we even come up with is this just in the shower? You're like, pulque from Mexico. Like, where does that come from?
So although I do some of my best thinking in the shower, for Boss Hog, typically not. At least for me, I feel like a lot of times for us, it's usually inspired by like cuisine.
Yeah, we do a lot finding flavors through food constantly. Boss Hog 9, I think, is a great example of that. That one, whole idea started with a cheese plate that we had a dried fig on. And that was like a great match. And then we deep dove into Greece and ended up at Tintura. So that was like, we end up going down these rabbit holes that Mitch was talking about earlier, right? Yeah. So a lot of time, cuisine, the food gives us a lot of inspiration. We also get together like once a month with our marketing team and just have a meeting that's basically like, throw an idea at the wall, no answer's a bad answer. Okay. Right? And so it's just, hey, what about this flavor? Or what about this? Or I tried this when I was traveling. What I think is great about WhistlePig is the amount of freedom that they give me and Mitch from an experimental standpoint, right? So we can go away from those meetings and those ideas and try them and see what happens. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that basically covers it. Yeah. Concise, nailed it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great though that you guys have the freedom to do that, because I think that is very apparent. Like, I didn't realize how interesting the finishes and things were until we walked through Boss Hog 11 a little bit. Yeah. And then of course I had to do a little research on 12 to see what I could find. No, that is very interesting. Then because I feel like at a certain point it becomes a gamble, right? You're like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, how do you determine you think it's safe enough that that's what you're going to do as the full-fledged? Does it have to go through, like, gateways? Or
So, like, we do experimentation beforehand. It's not like we're just sort of like, oh, we think this is cool. Hope. Let's try it with, like, 200 barrels and just see what happens. Yeah. So, like, there is a pretty meticulous R&D process in terms of really creating a solid benchtop model, seeing if we can get it to scale to 1 barrel before going sort of like to the full swing, just to really condense down the process. But, there are checkpoints that we need to hit to make sure that we can actually pull this off in the way that we really want it to be delivered to the consumer.
Yeah, okay. So then, taking a step back from Boss Hog and looking at all the experimental stuff, a question for both of you guys individually. What is the weirdest thing that you guys have tried that worked out and you were like, I can't believe this worked out, or like just completely surprised you?
I think I have a pretty straightforward answer. So within our, we have a pretty robust single barrel and single finish program, just for, bars, retailers that want to have sort of like their own sort of like more personalized WhistlePig experience. And so I remember this was like, 3 years ago, for this program, we actually sourced a mezcal barrel. And initially, everyone sort of was like, that's crazy. That's not going to work. That's such a weird flavor. It's not going to pair well with rye whiskey. And boy, howdy, was that one of my favorite finishes that we had ever done. Wow. It was an absolute crazy experience. Like, I still have like a small, like 200 milliliter sample of it that I'm babying. Because it was so good. And I missed that experiment so much. Wow. But that was sort of like a big swing that no one thought was going to land that really landed well.
Yeah, I can't think of any other mezcals. I know tequila is kind of showing up a little bit on the scene, but I can't think of... And mezcal's got that smoky quality to it.
It's very robust. It's very unique.
Yeah, definitely. So is that the same answer for you or something different?
I think probably one of the ones that like surprised me the most was we've done a couple gin finishes.
Oh, yeah.
That turned out to be really cool and unique and different. I mean, every gin is so different with botanicals and the different things you can use, right?
Yeah.
We ended up releasing one a couple years ago that partnered with the F1 driver Botas.
Okay.
Right, he has a gin place that's an apple-based gin.
Oh, okay.
Super cool, unique, and added some of those like sweeter apple notes and flavors into it. And it was that one was. I was skeptical going into it, but it turned out really well.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Is there anything for both of you, maybe it's a different answer, that you really want to try, but it's just like not possible or not feasible, and you're allowed to plead the fifth if it's like, well, that might actually happen at some point?
I mean, I can't think of anything that I've ever been like blocked from. There are things that I want to try, but like if the things that I'm picturing I do get to try, it's going to end up in Boss Hog, so I can't tell you about it. But like there are things, but so far it's been very open. Like if we truly believe that this is sort of like a once in a lifetime experience, like we're given the freedom to pursue it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's. It makes.
I mean, I'm sorry for only giving you a half answer.
There's stuff I want to ask that I know that I can't because we're recording. So that's totally fair. Okay. And then one other one you can plead the fifth on. I thought would be fun. Is there anything you have tried that didn't make it to market that you were like, oh my gosh, that did not work the way I thought it was going to?
Yeah. I mean that's part of the experimental process, right? There have been,
right?
For me, and this one bugs the crap out of me because like it should work and it didn't, was a coffee finish. Okay. We did a barrel that had stored coffee beans in it, put the whiskey in it, came out terrible. I mean, it was terrible. It was like really oily, super bitter. It was awful.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I will say, so I got bored one holiday season, and you know exactly where I'm going to go.
Yeah. Okay.
So I created a peppermint rye.
Okay.
Granted, I still think it can be reworked into something workable. However, its original R&D pass
was not.
Heck of an experience, let me tell you.
What did that look like? Like, what'd you do to achieve this peppermint rye?
So it was equal parts peppermint plant. I do enjoy gardening, and I have my own garden at home. But then two, post-Christmas, I was left, like most people, with way more candy canes than I ever needed. Yeah. So I was like, I can like macerate this and infuse this into rye and then run it back through a still. It turns out that was not the correct approach.
So you were running it through still again.
So a small benchtop still. Yeah. Yes, no, so I did. The idea was to sort of like use rye as a base and almost create like rye whiskey, peppermint schnapps sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
Listen, it's one of those things where it was slow. I had time. The mini still was open.
Right. That is very cool. See, I think that's cool that you guys get to try stuff like that because I think there is a misconception about a lot of distillers that I think people don't realize how much stuff doesn't make it to market. And so it seems like a lot of times, like the classic example is we took a terrible whiskey, we threw it in a finishing barrel and then released it because we needed to get rid of it. But sometimes you got to go down roads that are just dead ends.
Yeah.
How often would you say you guys do that? Or like how often are you guys trying different things? Because I feel like
all the time.
You're just
all
cranking out all these ideas. Yeah.
But it also like takes some like iterations, like gonna go back to Boss Hog this 12, right? To get that balance right in flavors and profiles, right? I think from the chili peppers for us was a super unique experience this year working with those. The first sample Mitch ever made and like brought for me to try, I was crying. I was like, we can't. Like, this is not it. I was like, I am. Like,
it was good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. However, I will admit it did really clear out my sinuses.
Maybe it could be sold as a medicine.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. How often do you think you guys would you say you come up with something and you're like, I want to try that, or does it have to just at first it's just a brainstorming session, or? Yeah.
I mean, little column A, little column B. I mean, I feel like we do a lot of our best work together. Okay. But there are times where it's just sort of like, I read an article, or I had some food, or something. It's just sort of like, all right, I'm just going to like go down this path for a minute, like see where it goes, or like see if the path splits into other paths and leads us to other things.
Yeah.
But it's pretty constant. You know, it's not like, oh, it's Friday, let's sit down and come up with 2 new ideas. Like it really is sort of more like off the cuff organic.
And
Wow.
like, I mean, you've kind of seen the size of the team here, right? We're relatively small. So if an idea hits and we're excited about it, we want to like, I just go to his office and I'm like, Mitch, let's talk about this. What do you think? And like, sometimes if we get really excited about it, like 2 hours later, we're already starting the whole process.
Yeah.
That is cool. I mean, that's kind of like a distiller blender's paradise to be able to just do something like that.
Yeah.
You know? That's pretty. I think a lot of people just dream of just doing that, basically, right? So, taking a step back, looking at all of the SKUs, the whole lineup. I know a common question that people are going to have. We talked about farm stock includes at least some grain to glass.
Yep.
Is everything else entirely sourced, or what's kind of the breakdown of the portfolio with where the distillate's coming from?
So we always want to produce more distillate, right? Like we would love to create more and more of our own whiskey.
Yeah.
However, we are boxed in by just the amount of acreage we have. Like there's only so much grain we can produce per acre. And then, although I love R2, I'm going to wait for this, whatever this is, to just calm down for just a moment.
I think it's about to give us some air conditioning.
There we go.
There we go.
So, no, but just as, you know, we're sort of limited by the amount of acreage we have. Although we do love our 2 combination pot column stills, like they're not a 10-story column that we can keep turning all the time. So like there's only so much output per year that we can get from them. So with that being said, like we do have sort of like starting with like our younger age statements, trying to showcase things we're doing in Vermont. And even if we have to do it just sort of like piecemeal and like blend in pieces of Vermont into some of our sources that have created our older stock that are well known.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we want to showcase what we're doing as much as we possibly can.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so at this point, we're also not that old of a company, right?
Yeah,
so
right,
if people do the math, like we can't make a 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't have a still 15 years ago.
Right.
But we are, like he said, slowly kind of like blending that in and making it a bigger and bigger part of who we are and what we do here.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, you'll find Vermont-based liquid all the way through the piggyback series, so up to that 6-year age statement.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that'll hopefully continue to grow as our whiskey gets older and
Yeah.
as what we've laid down kind of continues to age.
Yeah. Are you going to try to work it into the main, let's say, the flagships? And if so, are you going to try to move it towards a more Vermont flavor or keep it like a consistent and then release different SKUs?
So goal will always to have tenure taste like tenure.
Okay. Yeah.
If we're able to do that with blending in some Vermont, cool. But we're not going to compromise the flavor profile of tenure to just be able to say that.
Right.
So if it doesn't fit within, I'm using tenure as an example, but whatever age statement, right?
Yeah.
Then maybe its own SKU, it becomes its own SKU or it has its own spot later on. Kind of cross that bridge when we get a little closer to there, but we're definitely always trying to keep that integrity of our core SKUs and of the brand that people have come to know and love.
Yeah.
So like there's always like the adage of like consistency is king, right?
Yeah.
I mean, consumers want to know that anytime they pick up anything, it will always taste the same year in, year out, no year variations to set the other.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of with that being said, you know, we do want to sort of like highlight Vermont as much as we can and sort of like bring that in. But once again, we're a young company, and then like when I started, we hadn't even hit all 50 states yet, and now we're an international brand.
Yeah.
So like even trying to plot out 10 years ago, you know, like what we thought our liquid forecast was going to be dramatically changed. I mean, not for naught. The moment we went to Japan, like that liquid forecast went right out the window. Like we always knew that like, you know, Japan as a country really does consume a lot of bourbon American whiskeys rise. But I don't think we were ready for just how much they would like WhistlePig. Yeah. And so it almost immediately changed all of our sales forecasts by just expanding out to Japan.
That part of the whiskey world stresses me out when I think too much about it. I'm like, I'm glad that's not my job. That's all that I know. So I thought we'd finish with a little bit of a fun one, because you guys have mentioned you've gone to a few different places to kind of experience the cultures, decide if you're going to bring it into any type of blending, finishing, anything like that. So regardless of how the experiment turned out, even if you didn't like it, what did you find the most interesting trip or R&D that you did to come up with a finish?
You want to go first?
You can take a moment to think. That's fine.
There's
I pulled that one.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
I think one of my favorite was probably India.
Okay. Yeah.
We were there for the Holi festival. So the Festival of Color was like this absolute crazy experiment.
Oh, that's okay.
I think we just drained a tank CIP.
No problem. Okay.
Sorry. So there's the old, anyone who's ever worked in a production environment, especially, wine, beer, spirits, whatever, the sound of water on a floor is an immediate sign that something's typically wrong.
Oh, okay.
And so you'll notice I'm sure we can roll back the camera. The moment you heard water, Megan's face just paused for a moment.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No problem. You go ahead and start from the top. No biggie.
Yeah, so I think one of my favorite trips probably was the trip to India, which ended up being Boss Hog XI for us. We were there for the Holi Festival, which is the Festival of Colors. It was just like this great moment and experience I never expected to have. People are coming up to you, literally throwing like powdered color in your face. I was dyed pink for weeks. Does not come off, in case you're wondering.
Really?
Takes a very long time.
Coconut oil. Pro tip, coconut oil.
Good to know.
Yeah, but just like from an experience standpoint, like the culture there, that festival alone, that was a really cool opportunity and moment, I think, for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm going to lean into Mexico. I really did enjoy our time in Mexico. Not to mention, while we were in Mexico City, we went to so many incredible cocktail bars. Like, I always knew that Mexico City had like a really great cocktail culture, but to be able to like experience that firsthand was fantastic. And then also going to the pulqueria, the hacienda, like seeing maguey agave grow, like super cool experience. And then actually getting a chance to try pulque, because once again, like, pulque doesn't make it up really to the United States. So like to actually get a chance to like try this like really traditional beverage was a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. That's another thing I had no idea about until we looked at the Boss Hog 11 area over there, is how much you guys actually go experience the culture when you're deciding what you're going to do with this. And so I'm leading the witness a little bit here, but how much do you think that influences the flavor that you end up going for? Do you think you're trying to capture that culture, or you're trying to capture a specific flavor using that? Like, how does that...
Well, I feel like we're really trying to aim for the flavor and more of like the theme, as opposed to like, we created our own 100% authentic pulque, this, that, the other. Like, that should always belong to Mexico, those who actually grow maguey agave, this, that, the other. Mm-hmm. However, we do want to sort of like highlight those flavors, but once again, we want to pair this with rye whiskey, right? Like, we're trying to bring like the best of both. And you sort of leaned into it a little bit before, where, it's not like we're trying to take rye whiskey and then just like add a flavor. Like, it is more of a blending of two things that they're, the sum of them are greater than, or what's the phrase? The sum of them are greater than the parts? You understand what I mean.
I get what you're doing.
My saying is falling apart, but you really do end up with something bigger than you started with.
Yeah.
That's at least my goal.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, I got to give you guys the opportunity just in case. Is there anything coming up that you want to talk about before we close out here?
I mean, by the time this releases, Boss Hog 12 will be fresh on the shelves. So, super excited for that to get out to market. We also just recently released a North American single malt with a 30-year age statement.
Wow.
So the oldest North American single malt on the market right now. So super excited for that to be out there as well. So if you get a chance, go out and check it out.
Awesome. Yeah. Anything to add?
I mean, nothing really. Just stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys keep us guessing, which I like. That's awesome. So thank you guys so much for taking the time. Thank you again for having me here for this. This is
our pleasure.
This is great.
Yeah.
And minus a little water splashing, I think this worked out fantastic.
I would agree.
Appreciate it.
Of course.
Awesome.
Cheers,
Thanks,
brother.
guys.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Hi there. Since you're still here, I'm going to assume that you enjoyed the show, in which case, please just take a moment to leave a 5-star rating or review on whatever platform it is that you get your podcast from. Subscribe to the podcast because that actually really helps out. And also, if you're on YouTube, ring that notification bell. If you really like this show, though, the best way that you can support it is just checking out that Patreon page. It's at the description in the show notes or in the description on YouTube, or you can go to patreon.com/whiskeynoobs. That is the absolute best way to support the show, but also just spreading the word to other people who you think might be interested. I am so grateful for all of the forms of support that you guys give. And please, 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 most importantly, always drink responsibly. Thank you guys all so much. And in case nobody else tells you today, I got to tell you, God bless.